Realme GT Neo 3 Review. A thrilling experience of 150W fast charging tech. The GT Neo 3 is fast, with 150W charging and a flagship chipset. But with a decent display, snazzy design, and capable main camera, it has more to offer than that. It's not perfect, of course, but none of its flaws will be deal breakers for most. Realme's GT line takes its name from the world of motorsports, so it should come as no surprise that speed is of the essence in the new GT Neo 3. From the racing stripes across the back to the inclusion of the fastest wired charging in any phone right now, a frankly ridiculous 150W, this phone is designed for speed freaks. But despite that, it's also a satisfying, well-rounded phone that ticks a lot of boxes and only rarely slams the brakes. The first thing you'll notice about the GT Neo 3 is probably the outlandish rear design. Realme is no stranger to bold aesthetics, and the racing stripe are relatively restrained by the company's usual standards. I've been testing the Sprint White version of the phone, with black stripes running across the camera, while the Nitro Blue model sees white stripes cut through a navy body, reminiscent of a 1960s AC Cobra. If you'd rather have something a little more restrained, the Asphalt Black model is just that, black. The rear of the GT Neo 3 is made out of matte agate glass, with a lightly frosted finish to reduce fingerprints. Realme has somehow made the glass feel like plastic and, combined with the actually plastic frame, the phone does feel a little cheap in the hand. Given that glass brings with it obvious durability downsides, if the phone is going to feel this plasticky, then it might as well just be made from it anyway. That slight cheap feeling is partly down to how impressively light the phone is. At 188 grams, it feels more lightweight than you'd expect for a phone with a 6.7 inches display, and at 8.2 millimeters thick it's thin and comfortable in the hand too. Don't get me wrong, this is a big phone, but it doesn't always feel like one. One downside to a phone with a great design is that you'll probably end up covering it in a case, and that's as true as ever here. While Gorilla Glass 5 is found on the phone's front, there's no such protection on the back, and no IP rating for water and dust resistance, so you'll want an extra layer to keep this safe. The GT Neo 3's display isn't quite market-leading, but it's certainly no slouch. The flat 6.7 inches panel has a raft of impressive specs: OLED, 120Hz refresh rate, and HDR10+ support. In practice, it looks sharp. Colors are bright and punchy, viewing angles are good, and the 120Hz refresh rate shines through with smooth animations. More expensive phones offer upgrades like curved edges, dynamic LTPO refresh rates, and improved peak brightness, but for the vast majority of users the GT Neo 3's offering will be more than enough. The display here also offers an in-display fingerprint scanner, which has worked without a hitch. The GT Neo 3 is powered by the MediaTek Dimensity 8100 chipset, a 5nm chip that's designed for more affordable flagships. The phone performed exceptionally well in our benchmark tests, even beating some Snapdragon 8 General 1 phones on the CPU-focused Geekbench 5 test, though scores are more in line with the competition on the graphics-heavy GFX bench tests. Let's get the confusing bit out of the way first. There are two versions of the GT Neo 3, but not everywhere. I've been reviewing a model with 150W charging speeds and a 4500 mAh battery, the only version on sale in the UK. But in other countries, including India and parts of Europe, there's also a second model which drops to slower 80W charging but has a bigger 5000 mAh battery to make up for it. I haven't tested this version, so my comments on battery and charging only apply to 150W variant. Still, that's undoubtedly the exciting one. 150W is currently the fastest wired charging of any phone on the market, enough to top the phone up to full in less than 15 minutes, or hitting 50% in just 5 minutes. Realme is also bullish about battery health, presumably to reassure those worried that the extra fast charging might cause long-term damage. The company says that the phone should still have 80% of its original battery capacity left after 1600 charge cycles, which equates to 4 or 5 years of use. Although I obviously can't test that myself, I can say that it's far beyond current industry averages. That means that even if Realme is massaging its numbers a little, I'd still expect the GT Neo 3's battery life to be in better shape than most phones after a few years of use. The OIS helps it hold its own in low light too. At night it's clearer that this isn't a flagship-grade camera, but whether in the regular shooting mode or the dedicated night mode, you'll get shots that are good enough to share on social media, even if they're not pixel perfect. Things drop off a little with the 8MP ultrawide. This is decent in the daytime, though there's definitely a drop in detail from the main camera, and colors tend to be a little less appealing. At night it's plain disappointing, held back by the smaller sensor and lack of stabilization. Don't use this in low light unless you really have to. Realme UI is based heavily on parent company Oppo's Color OS, so if you've ever used an Oppo phone it will feel familiar. That's no bad thing, because Color OS, and by extension Realme UI, is one of the better Android skins out there. The software is deeply customizable, with a huge amount of flexibility in how your phone looks and feels. For example, Realme has always allowed users to tweak everything from the shape and size of their app icons to the animation used by the fingerprint sensor. This has now been bolstered by the addition of the Android 12 powered option to change the colors of the system-wide interface based on your wallpaper, though that will limit you to using static, rather than dynamic, wallpapers. The only real downside to the day-to-day software experience here is that Realme has included a few pre-installed apps you probably don't want. The most egregious are a set of games, Block Puzzle, Tile Master 3D, and the ever-curious Solitaire Fish World, but you'll also have to put up with a variety of Oppo's in-house apps for everything from transcription to file sharing.